Hi everyone, I'm Alexander Zeitlin, and this is the Lockdown Lecture Series for Intermediate Viola, adapted from the Alias Music Foundations course for the classroom setting. Let's jump into Lesson 7. So last time we had taken the notes that we learned from the sixth movement and worked on them with the rhythms reverse drilling technique. It's quite a bit of work, so I thought I would just jump in and play through it with you guys. Give you a chance to play along and see how you're doing on the drilling technique. We'll do it at a slightly faster tempo than what we were used to last time. So here we go all the way through. We're going to do the entire movement except for the last two chords with the first rhythm 8 on a bow, a little faster than we were doing last time. 3, 4. There we go, that's the first rhythm, and let's try it with the reverse rhythm. There we go. So basically, if you can keep up with that, you are ready to do some more serious tempo work and jump back in with metronome work. So let's say your fingers are running well. Now is the time when we start alternating, drilling with rhythms and drilling with the metronome. And essentially, what I'm going to have all you guys do this kind of going on, you just pick one day, you just do all your rhythms drilling, 4 in a bow, 8 in a bow, marcato rhythms. And then you switch the next day and you do a metronome workup. So today I'm going to start with quarter note equals 80, because probably at this point 60 is too slow for you. And that's going to sound like this. And then I'm going to turn it up to, let's say, 90. It's going to go up by tens. And so on. Let's do one more. Here's 100. And basically, this is, you'll notice that with every speed I go up, you can hardly tell that there's a difference. It just seems like I barely got any faster. As people, we're really, I think human beings as opposed to computers are really bad at making minute changes in what we do. And it's really good to have a metronome make these small adjustments. That way we can start at a reasonable tempo, and it's, just work it up so gradually we almost don't even notice that we're significantly increasing our speed. Most times if I were to ask a student to play something slightly faster, they're probably going to double the tempo, going from 60 to all the way to 120 in one go, and they'll think it was just a little bit faster. So that's the metronome workup. Your final goal tempo should be about 120, and let me demonstrate that, and then I'll give you a couple hints for how to do that well. So here is 120. Right, so that's about the 120 tempo. Now that's a pretty respectable speed already. If an intermediate player can play 16th note passages with quarter note equals 120, that's an excellent speed to work on. A couple hints and tips. First of all, when you're doing the workup, as you start to actually hit the challenging speeds and you feel like your fingers are failing, they're just, you can't quite keep it in control, my recommendation is don't try to play faster. If you try to play faster, your fingers will like work really hard and press hard and move big, and that's actually just going to slow them down. Think small and light, just very, very small motions with your left hand. Like the faster it gets, the more you just want to play. And then you're going to start to feel like it actually just is going faster on its own, and then you focus on controlling it, keeping it even, rather than trying to make it go faster. That being said, always challenge yourself to go past where you think you can. If you just barely made it at 90, and you're like, there's no way I'm going to make it at 100, try it anyway. Just push the metronome to 100, fail 2 or 3 times, and then you gave it your best. It'll give you a better chance to get it the next day. So that's homework for the 6th movement, is to alternate drilling and then going with the metronome work. Most people, when they have a hard time playing things fast enough, it's a finger strength issue, but the other side of it is a control issue, and that's where the metronome really comes in handy. Let's take a look at the 7th movement. That's going to be our next homework assignment for the week. So it looks very similar, actually, to the 6th movement, except there's no slurs, which means all the bows are separate. So now that means our left hand is moving fast, and our right hand is moving fast, and they have to move fast at the same time. That's the hard part. It ends up sounding like... Now, it's really fine for them to do one or the other. Like if you're doing on one note or on one bow, but is quite difficult. We'll have a special drilling technique next week where I will explain how to do that. But homework this week is to learn the notes at a slow speed with the metronome and go through all the rhythm and bowings and so on. So here's your A1 section, fairly straightforward. It just goes to here. You have a D harmonic. Here's your A2 section, and we have one special thing to take a look at. So you are going to get one new practice technique today. Very last 2 notes, which happen right here. There's a long shift between them. So essentially you get to those last 2 notes and you have an A flat on the D string, and this next note is supposed to be played way up on the D string. You don't go to the A string, you play way up here on the D string. So that's a difficult shift, especially in the middle of all these fast passages. So the question is, how do you actually drill shifts? And so we have a special technique for that. So normally, if I have 2 notes, there's a big shift between them. The shift usually happens in the bow change. I play one note, and I stop the bow, or like the bow just changes, like a moment of silence when it changes, and that's when I shift, and then I get to my next note. So how do I hear better what's happening here? Well, all we do is we split the first note into 2, we split the next note into 2, and then we just slur them together. So now the shift between them is happening in the middle of the bow. And essentially, instead of I have, there's 2 of them, but I just slur the middle 2. We call this drilling technique repeat connect, because you're repeating every note and then connecting it. And you can actually do this like with any series of notes that have a bunch of shifts. If I had something like this, I could repeat connect. And so now I actually hear all my shifts. So very, very useful technique. Let's see how we're going to use it on our specific difficult spot right here. I'm going to mark it with like a star. I'm just going to remind you guys that it's on the D string. You should probably mark that it stays on the D string right here. So you are going to repeat the bottom note, repeat the top note, and you're going to slur. But when you get to the top like this, you just go right back down. So this is how we would practice a particularly difficult shift. Like it's not like requires more than just 1 or 2 times like this. Back and forth. And then little by little you can even increase the speed. So when you get to it, your hand really feels that distance because you've repeated it so many times. So that's how you drill that particular shift. And that's that section. Let's go on to the next section. There's nothing particularly tricky about it. We do have one harmonic. We've had those before. Now, the next section here, the A4 section, has this marking, and this is another way to write this harmonic. Normally you would play this harmonic on the D string in the middle of the string like this, but this harmonic is played like a quarter of the way up the string here. It's known as the second partial or the quarter partial, and I'm not going to go into string behavior and physics here because we're going to keep it fairly simple. But basically, this would also be sometimes notated like this, with a diamond head on, oops, actually it's the wrong position, on a diamond head where D3 would go, where like your third finger would go in first position. That's how you make that harmonic right here. So I would take my third finger and I would put it where it would normally go in first position, but with a harmonic touch, it sounds like this. And it basically makes a harmonic that's an octave above this. And I don't know, if you guys talk me into it, someday I could put together a string behavior physics lecture, which is always fun to do. Ends up sounding like this. And so on. So our very last section here has 2 of those notes to watch out for. This one's going to be on the A string. It's going to be on the D string. So the first 2 notes in that bar right here are just in the normal harmonic position. And then, so that's how to play those. So that's your homework, is to go over all that and take a look at each section, learn the notes, learn the rhythm and bowings, work it up with the metronome a little bit so you can play it. I think a good working tempo for this movement, just to get started on it, is quarter note equals 50. And then if you've done a really good job with that, you can get to work on memorizing it. And then you have some metronome work to do on the 6th movement. That's it, and I will see you at the next lesson.